Well, I want to first of all start by saying thank you for joining us for this 6th grade math prep talk video where we get you ready for your PLCs the week of September 19th as you plan the content that you'll teach the week of September 26th. My name is Ryan Castle. I'm the math coordinator here in Mesquite ISD. And in this video, we want to help you become a contributing member to your PLC by showing you some of the released questions on the lessons that will be taught for the week of September the 26th so that you can have a productive conversation around how you will teach students to be successful on those types of problems in your PLC. So again, thank you, and we hope this video is super helpful for you. So as we take a look at an overview of the week starting September the 26th, we're finishing up TEK 6.5b, having students find the whole given a part and the percent. And if you look at the frequency of this TEK on STAR, you'll notice that each of the 3 ways that we want students interacting with percent proportions has been tested an equal number of times. And so one thing that students really get caught up on, and we'll talk about this later in the video, is what is given to me in the problem and what am I trying to find? So we'll talk about strategies to help students understand how to work through those issues as they're solving problems. And then we'll talk about what is the purpose of a flex day. You'll see that on Friday in the scope and sequence, we've put a flex day. And so I want to give you some ideas for how you could use that day purposefully and intentionally with your students. In this released item, Dennis made an extra $245 for selling furniture. That extra $245 was 7% of the total value of the furniture he sold, and we want to figure out the total value of the furniture that Dennis sold. Again, using a strip diagram can be a good strategy to help students understand what they are given in the problem and what they are trying to find so that they can correctly set up their percent proportion. In this particular case, the extra for selling furniture for Dennis was $245, and that extra was 7% of the total value of the furniture sold. Therefore, we know that 100% would go down here to get us the total value, and that total value is what we're looking for in this particular problem. Therefore, I know how to set up my percent proportion. 245 is going to be my part. We are looking for the whole, and that is going to equal to my 7 out of 100 for my percent. Then we can talk about different strategies perhaps for students to solve this problem. Before we get there, I want to talk about the idea of reasonableness and estimation to perhaps eliminate some wrong answer choices. What we notice is that the extra that Dennis sold was $245, and that was only 7% of the total value of the furniture that he sold. Well, if that were, let's say, 50%, then that means in order to get the total, we would multiply our 245 by 2 so that we would get $490. That's if it were 50% of the total value, but this is only 7%. So we know our answer is going to be much larger than $490. Well, if you'll look at B and C, both of those values are smaller than 490, and so they definitely cannot be the correct answer. That is just one way that you could use the idea of reasonableness and estimation to help students eliminate wrong answer choices. Now, what I'm going to do in this problem to solve this percent proportion for the unknown is I'm going to think about the idea of equivalent fractions. And I want to figure out, what do I have to multiply 7 by in order to get 245? Well, that's just a division problem. 7 divided by 245. 7 will not go into 2, but it will go into 24 3 times to give me 21, and then 3 and 5, 7 goes into 35 5 times. And so that means in order to get 245 from 7, I have to multiply by 35. If I do that on the top, then I'm going to do that also on the bottom, and 100 times 35 is 3,500, or 3,000 500. And so I used a clever way of doing that, not necessarily cross multiplication, although you could show that to your students. It's going to make the math a little more challenging potentially, but still something they should be able to do. But in this case, I used a little bit of a different strategy to end up with answer A. In this released question, a shop owner offered a 20% discount off the regular price of a mirror, and the amount of that discount was $3. We want to know what the regular price of the mirror is. Well, what we notice here is that 20% is associated with the discount, and $3 is associated with the discount. So both of these items, both of these numbers are associated with the part. And so when I set up my percent proportion, I'm going to do it with the part over the whole, which I don't know, is equal to my percent. Well, 20% for the discount, and obviously that's always out of 100. Now, what we're going to do in this case is we're going to solve this percent proportion by cross multiplication. And so if we begin that process, we're going to start with 3 times 100, which is going to give me 300, and then dividing that number by 20. 20 won't go into 3, but it will go into 30 one time. That will be multiplied by 20 to give me 20. 30 minus 20 is 10, and then drop down my 0 to give me 100. 20 will go into 100 5 times, and so we see that the regular price of the mirror is $15. Again, we could have talked about reasonableness and estimation in order to eliminate answer choices B and C. Because if the discount was $3 and that was only 20% of the original cost, then I know that the cost can't be $6 because then the discount would have had to been 50%. And then the same thing for $9. In order for it to be $9, that means the discount would have had to been 33%, but it wasn't. It was 20%, and so that's how I know I can eliminate B and C as wrong answers. Just having students think through the reasonableness of their answer. One last released item has students finding the whole given the part and percent. Customers at an ice cream shop took a survey. The results showed that 144 customers rated the shop as very satisfactory, and that number represented 45% of the total number of customers who took the survey. So once again, we have a number, 144, that is associated with a percent, 45%. And so that is a clue that we're going to be looking for the whole here, because I'm given a percentage that is smaller than 100 and a number that is associated with that percentage. And so when I set up my percent proportion, I'm going to have the part over the whole, which I'm looking for. I'm looking for the total or whole number of customers who took the survey, and that's going to equal to 45 over 100. Doing the cross multiplication here is going to end up with 144 times 100, which will be 144 with 2 zeros on the end, and then we will divide that by 45. 45 will not go into 1 or to 14, but it will go into 144. And if I just sort of estimate that, I think it would probably go in about 3 times. 3 times 45 will give me 5, and then carry the 1 to give me a 13. And so this will be 9 and drop down the 0. 45 will go into 90 twice, with a remainder of 0, and so then we know that 45 will go into a 0 times, and so 320 will be the answer here. But again, you can use that estimation to eliminate 2 wrong answers. 65 and 99 are really there for the students who don't understand that they are finding the whole. Those answer choices are there for students that believe they're finding a part. And so really having students think through, am I looking for the part or am I looking for the whole? And having them practice just doing that part of it, of identifying what is the question asking for before they set up the percent proportion and begin to solve, is a really important aspect of the lesson for these days. So as I've sort of mentioned already through the video, where do students struggle with this concept? It's really in 2 areas. The first is identifying if the question is asking for the part or the whole or the percent, and then if they are able to correctly identify what's being asked for, then being able to set up the proportion correctly before doing the calculations. I'm going to talk in the next slide about a resource that we have that will help with the first struggle here. But for the second struggle, one thing that you can consider doing when you're planning is plan your aggressive monitoring laps to have a walk around where you check students' proportions before they begin solving. And you can tell the student, this is what I'm looking for as I'm walking around. I want to see that you have a percent proportion set up correctly before you begin doing the calculations, because it's very important, obviously, that they have that set up correctly before they start doing the calculations and potentially come up with the wrong answer and think that they're doing the question correctly. One way that we can address that first struggle or misconception that students have is using a card sort. We have this resource available in Eduphoria for you to use with your students so that they can get used to reading a word problem and then identifying if they are looking for the percent, for the part, or for the whole. And so as you wrap things up on Thursday and Friday, consider giving this to the students, because now they have solved problems in all three ways. And so they are now going to be having problems that are mixed together. So they need to be able to identify what the question is asking for. If students are able to do this quickly, one way that you could extend this activity is by having them actually solve the problems that are on the cards. Another way to have students make connections between these three different problem types is to use a lead forward strategy called Connect the Dots. You'll organize students into groups of 3, which works perfectly because we have 3 different problem types, and then show them 3 different assessment items. We have this already prepared for you in our resources in Eduphoria. Then each group member is assigned one of the problems and works it out, showing all of their work and getting to the correct answer. Group members will then teach their problem to the other group members, and then they will put their problems on this Connect the Dots template, where they will then look for similarities and differences between the problems. And this will be really powerful to have your students analyze, what does it look like when a question asks for the percent? Or what does it look like when a question asks for the whole or the part? And they should start to really recognize when a question is asking for which of those 3 things. Then you can have students get up and engage in musical chairs if you'd like to. And as the teacher plays music, students walk, dance around, they grab a seat, making a new group. And then students can analyze the work from someone else's group, correct mistakes, adding more thorough thoughts to the template, completed by the other group, so that students are really dissecting these problems and figuring out what is the same, what is different, and getting a great understanding for when to use which strategy, how to set up the percent proportion in order to solve the problem that they are given. As we've seen in the frequency distribution, for this particular TEK, it may be tested as find the percent, it might be find the part, and it might be find the whole. And more than likely, because this is a readiness standard, it might be asked more than one of those ways on the same STAR test. And so students have to be very proficient in understanding how to determine what am I looking for given this particular problem. Before I wrap up this video, I want to talk about the purpose of a flex day. You'll notice that in the scope and sequence on Friday, we gave you a flex day. And so I want to talk a little bit about how you can best leverage that day for instruction in your classroom. One idea is that you could give a CFA over this TEK. You've been spending several days now teaching students how to find percents and parts and wholes in real-world problems, and so you could give a CFA to assess if students are understanding what you have been teaching. You could also use data from previous CFAs to reteach or continue practicing underperforming TEKs from previous lessons. You may also have to use that flex day to perhaps catch up from any teacher absences, or maybe even continue practicing the ideas of percent proportions because you've noticed through formative assessment data from previous classes that students are in need of more practice. Just make sure that it's not a free day for students and that you are using the day to purposefully move the ball down the field, so to speak, in order to help your students get closer to mastery on percent proportions. As we wrap up this video, I want to give you a couple of reminders. First of all, we will hold office hours on Tuesday, September 20th from 4 to 4:30 if you have any additional questions on the content that you will teach the week of September 26th and plan for in PLCs the week of September 19th. The other reminder that I want to give you is that we have only covered a brief portion of the pre-planning process in this video. There are other released items that I was not able to get to in this video, and so part of the pre-planning process is for you to go through the released questions, not just read them, but also solve them and try to pick up some of the breadcrumbs that the state of Texas is laying down for us as far as hints and way things that are going to be tested on the STAR test. So make sure that you go through on Lead Forward to the IQ released questions and solve through the rest of the ones that I was not able to get to in this video. And if you have questions about that, you can reach us through office hours, or you can reach out by email, rcastle@mesquiteisd.org, or to Paris Scott, our middle school facilitator, at pscott2@mesquiteisd.org. Before you go, please fill out this survey using the link or the QR code provided to the left. This will help us let us know that you watched the video and also help us to better serve you in future videos. Thank you again so much for joining us for this video. I hope it's been helpful in your preparation for finishing out percent proportions in 6th grade math. And as always, please feel free to reach out to our teaching and learning team in the math department with any questions that you might have.